Frontline with Kortney Kenny, and I'm Tom Parisi, and today we got a great set of guests. It's a very special episode of the Frontline podcast. I'm Tom Parisi, he's Kortney Kenny, and today we are proud to be joined by the commissioner of the OHL. I could go on with accolades, but hey, we only got like less than an hour here. David Branch is our special guest today in a very special episode. David, we can't say enough good things about what you've done to the league, and we're happy to have you on. So let's just jump right into it. How close were we this year to actually playing hockey?
Wow. You know what, Tom and Kortney, if you wrote a book and put a chapter in about our return to play and how close we were, people would think, you know, it was a fiction, right? But we went through a lot of different starts and potential starts, etc. What the government said to us at one point very clearly is that if you want to have a chance to return and play, you must replicate basically the health and safety measures that the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Ottawa Senators had put into place. So we worked with them and the NHL and developed a playbook for return to play for safety and health, largely focused, of course. And I mean, at our level, we couldn't afford to do all the things that we had to do, shall we say, in order to comply with the standards that had been established. But as we moved through it, the chief medical officer, Dr. David Williams, and his people approved our return to play. And then coincidental with that, we then had to talk to the province about financial support so as to allow us to move forward and put in all the best necessary health programs. The province complied. And now we were ready to move forward and make the announcement. And that was, I forget the exact date, but we were actually drafting up the press release. We had told our owners in a conference call that this was happening. The Premier of Ontario was on the call. He wanted to wish everyone well and so forth. And then within hours, we got, literally hours, we got word that, wow, there's some alarming new analytics on this new variant. Let's hold off on the announcement. Okay. So we held off for a few days, and it became evident that we weren't going to be able to move forward in a short period of time. So I can tell you, it was anywhere from 6 to 8 hours away from making the announcement. That's how close we were. But it was a long process. But I think the key here, guys, is that our owners were totally committed to returning to play, but obviously only if it was, safe for our players. Health and safety was paramount by the province, by the chief medical officer, but our owners as well. And at any rate, it resulted in running out of runway, as we would say, and couldn't move forward. It was very, very challenging and difficult. And it's something that we're all working to get over and move forward. And the people that you feel worse for than anything else, of course, are the most important people in the game, and that's the players. And we really, really felt for the players and their families and everyone else involved, including our municipalities that we're so fortunate to represent. And I mean that most sincerely, because along the way, we enlisted the support of our municipalities, and they were there. And I said to the owners at one point, when you look back, one of the positives that we can take away from this is the importance that our franchises, our teams are held in their respective communities. And we play a role in that community. And I'm sure you see it in North Bay. So we're going to build on that. We're going to move forward. And that's the exciting part now, that we're very close to getting a number of things in place as we plan for next season.
We don't want to spend an awful lot of time talking about the season that wasn't, but one thing I do have to ask about it, because we do want to move forward and try and keep things light. But one thing I do want to ask was, there was a lot of talk about bubbles and stuff like that. How did you foresee the league coming back if you guys did make that announcement?
Yeah, initially, as we were crafting a schedule, a reduced number of games, one of the concepts that we had to follow, and it was, really put into play by the government, was having these hubs, protective environments, bubbles. So we started out with 4 hubs around the province of Ontario, each with 5 teams. And so that was very real. We hadn't identified where they were going to be, because you had to do it in a fashion that the local public health units would support it. The province overall would support it, because they were into, red zones and gray zones and everything else. So, but that concept was in play. And then at the end, as we were running out of runway, what we were in fact going to do was have 3 hubs bubbles and have the 3 U.S. teams play in the U.S. And they would be like a 3-team bubble. And that's because we'd reduced from having a 40-game schedule in a bubble to 24 to 20, et cetera, et cetera. So, but that was very real, and that was going to be part of the overall program.
We're also hoping the American teams, Flint, Erie, and Saginaw, are going to be part of next season. Has there been talks with the American side on how that's exactly going to work?
Not officially with the American side. I think that we've created a checklist, obviously, on return to play for next year now, and that's where our focus is. And we've had preliminary discussions with the province. And let me just say, looking back at last year, another positive that we took away from last year, in addition to the recognition factor of the importance of our teams and our communities, is the number of great relationships we have developed with provincial authorities. And so we have a real good working relationship, and so that'll hold us in good stead as we've entered into some discussions on wanting to confirm the border being one of them, which is a federal issue, as we all know, but we all work together for a common cause and support there. And then, spectator support, which we need in order to survive. We're a spectator-driven league, etc. So there's a few things there, and then as a league, we've got to consider policies and what they might look like to say, hey, all our staff have to be vaccinated. Hey, all our players need to be vaccinated, and that's a fine line, because you have to respect, as we will, personal choices and desires in that area. So a lot of work to do for next year, but you hear the positive signals starting to come out now about the level of vaccination within our province. The province is starting to send signals of opening up more and more, and that'll hold us all in good stead. And we can only hope that the U.S., when it comes to sports, and we all see what they're doing with spectators and increasing numbers sold out in certain areas, that remains a positive step. So that'll all lend weight to us going forward next year.
With the last season, every time that there was a date thrown out, it never really felt like it might have been a concrete date. But there is a concrete date this year where you guys are very hopeful of starting October 7th. How huge is that to have put that out already and say this is the date that the OHL is coming back?
Yeah, we felt it was important, Kortney, and for a variety of reasons. But for those of us that follow the OHL closely, that would be the latest we've ever started a season. And it's, for argument's sake, Thanksgiving weekend. And we thought, you know what, those of us that are these crazy hockey people and love the game, this is an opportunity to be very thankful that we're returning to play. So why not Thanksgiving weekend? We feel comfortable right now that that's a very achievable date. And we're excited. The other thing that we're doing with the structure of our schedule, which is different, is playing a reduced schedule prior to Christmas. In other words, buying as much time and space just to make sure that we're all back playing and everyone's comfortable with it. And if any issues arise, we can read and react and make the necessary adjustments. We're going later than we've ever gone before, to April the 7th. And then the Memorial Cup. The three leagues have worked together, and we've established Memorial Cup being held in June, and that'll be the latest we've ever had the Memorial Cup. So everybody's working together to make it happen. And the one thing, and you talk about takeaways, and I've touched on that a few times, but to me, one of the intriguing things is that we have seen new ways, different ways in which to present our game, right? Timing wise and otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
And I think some of them have worked. We feel some of them have worked. And I believe for maybe the first time in a long time, there's more of a willingness to make some changes, not for the sake of changes, but for making it better. And we know, for example, in a regular OHL season, the time of year that we have the best spectator support is in the months of January through March at the end of our regular season. I'm not saying our playoffs aren't well attended. I just mean for regular season. Well, now, and we basically, have half our schedule by Christmas, the other half after. Well, now it's going to be about a 60-40 split. And that we feel is going to be a benefit to our teams and to our fans as we are in the meat of hockey season when we get into January and February and March. So we see that as a positive going forward.
It's the Frontline podcast. We're talking with OHL Commissioner David Branch. David, how cathartic was it, though, to finally say some positives are coming out of this? We were talking to some players, we were talking to some coaches and GMs, and they were just like ear to ear, they were smiling. How about at head office? What's the feeling like?
The same. Believe me, absolutely the same. And you could feel the energy. The new thing that we had to do was have the draft lottery for positioning, right? And our communication group at the league office, working with each of our teams, did a fabulous job in the presentation, and the interest that we had in following was huge. Because to your point, Tom, I think people are wanting to touch and feel and see it and move forward. So that energy's there, that excitement is there. The upcoming priority selection on the 4th and 5th of June, huge. And we feel that as well. And then there's the U18 process a few days later. So, the appetite is there, the excitement is there, the energy is there, and we're all looking forward.
Well, I know Kortney and I, we both watched the draft lottery at the same time, and it did not feel like a half an hour. I loved how it was presented. Yes. Kudos to the guys at head office who came up with that, but it ran so smooth, like so smooth.
Nice to hear that, Tom, and we had a lot of positive feedback to that end. That goes to our communication staff, young people, bright people, and they did a great job. And we know they'll have a similar program in place for our draft. And talking about changes, for the first time, we're going to run the draft over 2 days. First 3 rounds, Friday evening, balance of the draft. We go to 15 rounds Saturday. So another signal that, you know what, let's challenge ourselves on the way we've been doing things. Let's not just do change for the sake of change. How can we do it better? How can we make it more exciting for our fans and for our players?
I do have one negative takeaway from the draft though, and that's the fact that Sudbury got the first overall selection. Not a big fan of that here in North Bay. So, but I do have to ask, like, going through that and trying to figure out the lottery system and stuff, everybody, you know, at the head office and stuff, what kind of new headaches that present to the league?
Well, it went extremely well. Ted Baker, Vice President of Hockey Operations for the OHL, sourced a system. It's a computer-generated program on how you can develop the order of selection, shall we say. Our teams adopted that. They understood it. And, it seemed to represent more of a new age way to do things as opposed to the ping pong balls, as I think most people thought it might be. And you know what? It was embraced, and simple as that. And it also goes back to what we touched on. Everybody's dying to return and play. We'll do what it takes to return and play. So it was embraced. And hey, the results speak for themselves. Very random. It's exciting. I know the feeling in Sudbury was truly outstanding. They were ecstatic, right? And so forth. And hey, it's a good thing for that franchise. It's a great thing for our league as well.
Yeah, if I was born 130 kilometers to the west of me, I'm sure I'd be a little bit more excited too.
David, you've been doing this for a long time, since 1979, being the OHL commissioner. Is this the most change you have adopted in your time there in one pile, if you will? Just so much change in so little time.
I never thought of it in those terms, Tom, but I think quickly looking at it, I think you're right. And I mean, one of the things that I've always enjoyed about being involved in the hockey industry, in the position that I've been very fortunate. And people say to me, "Why, you've been doing that job for a number of years. Aren't you tired of it?" And the agenda is ever changing. And what you did last year certainly isn't what you were doing this year, even in a non-eventful year. So it sets you up for enjoying, appreciating, and embracing change. And if you don't, you won't survive. Our young players, that their energy, their enthusiasm brings about change, and so you have to accept it. And I think our league as a whole accepts it, and it enables us, and did enable us, as you point out. Yeah, we had to do a lot of things differently and quickly, but it was embraced, and even by Scott Abbott, who I don't know if you've come to see Scott through the same lens as myself in talking about the owner of the Battalion, but Scott is such a traditional person, and he loves the game. He has a passion for the game, but he's always, there to remind us that let's not prejudice the principles and foundation of our great game. And it's not to be done for any other reason than to make the game better. And that's where Scott's been good, and I've often teased him about, some of his views and attitudes, but he brings such a great balance to our league at the governor's table when we get into discussing any number of new initiatives going forward.
Yeah, we're very thankful to have an owner like Mr. Abbott here in North Bay, that's for sure. And looking forward again to next season, you touched on it a little bit about the fan side of things. And of course, we don't know what the world's going to look like come October. But do you foresee, as it stands right now, do you think that there will be fans in attendance for OHL hockey games?
I really believe so. Now, I don't have any real foundation to say that, other than I believe the vaccination program is starting to really take shape. I believe, as I mentioned earlier, we're seeing the effects of spectator support in the U.S. And how that appears to be working just fine. Thank you. And, we've seen developments with the Montreal Canadiens having a certain level of fan support. And it'll be interesting as the playoffs unwind here in the NHL the Canadian division teams that advance, what they'll be able to do with spectator support. But I just feel that's the mood, that's the way it's flowing, and I'm confident we'll have spectators. And
What impresses? Sorry, sir.
No, go ahead, Tom.
I was just about to say what impresses us the most is, despite the lack of fans this season, the scholarship program remains. How important is that?
Huge. And understand, if there's been in my time, there's been many gratifying moments, okay, as a league, but none more than this past year where, we had the obligation to our graduate players, and it was about $3.3 million worth of financial commitment, and our owners didn't bat an eyelash. They recognized, yes, we have an obligation, and that says a lot. We've got a great culture in our league, and we've got a great commitment to do those things which are right.
I wanted to ask on the North Bay front, excuse me, we did reach out. He's a friend of our show, of course, Battalion General Manager Adam Dennis. We reached out for a bit of a scouting report on you before you came on, and I'll get into that in a moment. I just wanted to know if you had a similar type of report on Adam from his time in working in the league.
He was a much better administrator than a goalie, first of all.
Says the guy he's won 2 OHL championships in a
Yeah, I know. And I don't mean what I say. As talented as he was on the ice, he's maybe even more so off the ice. I mean, he was a great loss to us at the head office when he chose to move on, but that's part of the process, and we take great pride in that. And the thing that I really saw with Adam in his role with us was his care for the players and what's best for them, and serving their needs, and in doing so, helping us to, in some cases, influence families who weren't sure was the OHL the correct route. And he represented and brought so many of those qualities to us with his background, and he spoke with experience and conviction. So it's great to see our alumni doing so well, not only, on the ice, but off the ice. You look around at our coaches and managers. I mean, 80% of them played in our league, and that's huge. And your head coach, Ryan Houlihan, same thing, and that's really important. I think there's so much to be said for that the player experience is understood and supported.
I think it's very impressive, the fact, at least in my time with the OHL, there's never any pushback when it comes to a person wanting to pursue something else or graduate from the program. Everybody's so supportive and willing to lend a hand and always willing to reach out. I think it's an important culture to have.
I couldn't agree more. Absolutely, without question. We're here to develop young people, and that's what we have fostered. And that can mean any number of things, of course. Yes, hockey, professionally, whether it's the National Hockey League, AHL, Europe, great. But as well, you've got to support some of your goals and aspirations on the ice with setting yourselves up if things don't go well. And that means, not letting your studies slip, having a plan, having a backup plan, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that in our great country, youth sport has become a much more positive environment. And I think players now, more than ever before, have a better appreciation and support to go to some of the great programs that exist, right across the country, actually, as you, I'm sure, recognize at the university sports setting.
Before I get to my next question, I will say this is the scouting report Adam gave us before we talked today about you. He's a great leader and hockey person, has a huge heart, and truly cares about the players. I learned a lot from Dave. He is big on community and helping out the next generation. He's made an incredible impact on junior hockey in Canada. So that said, learning a lot from you. Well, he's definitely helped out the Battalion franchise since he's come here for sure. So we appreciate the help in turn that you have given the Battalion franchise with Adam coming here. But my question to you, of course, you have the diehard fans and people in the sport that have stayed in the OHL. For an outsider kind of looking in that's not sure, doesn't really seem to know, what are some of the benefits to playing in the OHL that the average person might not see?
Oh, wow. I mean, and I hear this a lot. First of all, sport is such an important component in every community, and it's at all levels, and not least of which is the business world as well. And if you play a team sport, particularly hockey, people have an instant recognition that, hey, you know what, you must be a team player. You understand what it takes. You understand how to win. You understand how to lose. And I mean, those are just some of the qualities and values that a team sport like hockey brings. And it's important, I think, to the work our teams as well help players understand and giving back and supporting and helping those less fortunate. Those are very real things. And I think it's a byproduct of what our game is, what it means, what it can do, and how we can make communities better, how we can make our country and continue to keep our country the best place to live in the world.
Completely agree.
Yeah. My next question on that front. So if we can switch gears and go back a couple of years now to when the Battalion first decided to move up Highway 11 and come to North Bay. What goes into the whole relocation from a league side of things when a team is saying, hey, it might not be working out where we are and we're looking at moving elsewhere?
Yeah, that's an important question. And it's one we challenge ourselves on. I mean, first of all, you look at things like the geographic location. Does it fit into our footprint as a possible new center in our league? The hockey history and culture, is it there? To what extent? The arena facility, will it meet the needs of our team, going forward? And not just our team, but our fans, the fans, in this case of North Bay. What about schooling and the support systems that are in place for the schooling, et cetera, et cetera? Those are the key boxes that, you always look to and wish to check off. And that was a big part of why Mr. Abbott chose North Bay, and the league fully supported it. And I mean, I can remember to this day, and he's making a statement about Mr. Abbott that, the league was excited to come to North Bay, and we felt so good in giving North Bay an owner who we felt is among the very best. And he certainly, in our view, has, lived up to those expectations and standards. He's such an important person in helping our league to grow, and the care he has for the game, for the players. Those were where we have to be.
Frontline with OHL Commissioner David Branch. On that front of things, of course, the Centennial's leaving town about 7 or 8 years prior to that. Is there any hesitancy on the league side of things where it hasn't worked out one time to go back a second time?
I mean, the answer to that is no. Okay. Where I was kind of going with that in my own mind here a little bit is, I don't know if it's even fair to say in the case of North Bay that it didn't work out necessarily, and it takes two in order to, have a relationship, right? It's no different than being married. And so, I mean, I always knew that there was some very, very loyal fans in North Bay. And some of the obvious needs were there that most people recognized. And the good thing is with the arena facility, largely the city responded, and there was no hesitancy going back to North Bay. I mean, it's a hockey community. It's a proud community, rich in hockey history and tradition, and met all the needs and wants that we as a league ideally wanted to have. Good place to live. It's all these things. And yeah, we were very fortunate to have another opportunity in a market like North Bay.
You know, in your time in this league, over 40 years, it's gone from 12 teams to 20. And who knows if there's a possibility more. But I want to know, is there any team you're particularly surprised maybe stuck around, or maybe disappointed didn't quite stick around as long as it could?
Yeah, once again, that's a question that I have never really pondered. I mean, the one thing that I'm really proud of right now is that we just got through a pandemic, and there has been absolutely no discussion that we're not all going to show up with the puck drop on the 7th of October. And that's the care and passion that our owners have to move forward. And it's got to be understood, I'm sure, by most people. And we're no different than how many other small businesses and just families that have endured a lot of hardship. And we made the decision, we're not going to complain, because our complaints pale in comparison to a person that's lost his job, lost his house, or lost his business. But I am proud to say that we have no signals that suggest that our league has never been stronger and healthier than it has been entering the pandemic. And I have every reason to believe that we will all work to get back to that level and continue to grow. That's something that excites us very much.
Has there been any, of course, the pandemic putting a pause on most things, but pre the pandemic, was there any thoughts of expanding the league at all?
You know, our owners, from time to time, we visit expansion, okay? Because as touched on by Tom, we went from 12, to 15 to 17 to 20 over a period of time. And the one thing that we recognize, we believe in, that in our market, the OHL market footprint, we've got a very educated, sophisticated hockey fan. You can't fool them. You've got to give them a product that they're proud of and they recognize as being the best in junior hockey. And so we're sensitive to not wishing to dilute the product. And because there's that from a fan spectator standpoint, and then it goes to the player experience, where in order to get better, you got to play with and against the best and have good competition. So I feel confident that we could add 5 teams for next season, because there's that interest there. There's that desire there. But I do believe, our owners believe, that it would only serve to erode the level and quality of play. And we don't wish to do that. We have no immediate plans for expansion. And we want to continue to build on what we have.
If someone was to come up to you and present a really good opportunity for expansion, what are kind of the things that you would have to check off, other than, you mentioned some of the community things, but from an ownership side of things, what are some of the things that you'd have to check off?
You're talking about the owner himself or the proposed location?
The whole process itself.
Yeah.
Just hypothetical, just purely for my own interest. Well, not that I'm ever going to own an OHL team, but
well, I mean, I'll repeat some of the things I've already mentioned about the location of the team in relation to the existing members, the location of the center, shall I say, the quality of the arena facility, the educational systems that are in place, transportation facilities that exist, et cetera, et cetera. I think that there's the hockey history, if any, what it has been, what it's like, et cetera, et cetera. The community in relation to not only hockey history, but the business side of the necessary industry to support teams that we now need by way of sponsorships and other such elements to keep our teams active to the level, to the extent that we currently are. Ideally, a small ownership group, if not singular. Ideally, an owner who understands the game, understands the importance of the player experience, et cetera, et cetera. So I think those are some of the real key factors here. And if you look around our league, we've got some great owners. We really do. And they all have a common cause and are willing and wish to be part of a team approach to what's better for the league is first and foremost.
I want to shift a little bit of gears away from Ontario Hockey League, Sarah. I know you remember the selection committee for the Hockey Hall of Fame. Who's a player that stands out in your mind who you've been a part of the induction process so far?
The political answer is all of them.
How do I make a case for my favorite hockey player, Alexander Mogilny, to get in? What do I got to do?
Well, I don't want to sound patronizing, but you know what? I loved watching Mogilny play. I mean, he was so crafty, so special, especially with that puck, right? And his time undoubtedly will come for strong consideration. It's a real, and I'm bound by confidentiality agreements as being a member, right? But I've been so impressed with the integrity of the process, and it's about rewarding those that should definitely be rewarded with the honor of being inducted as a player or an official or as a builder. So it's and I mean, we all have some likes, particular likes you might say, but you must set those aside and do what's the best and meet the principles, aims, and objectives of the Hall of Fame itself.
How long does that process take to figure out which player goes in and then to be inducted? Let's say you have your mind set on player A. How long is the process to get player A from being retired to the Hall of Fame?
Well, there's a 5-year waiting period from the time you retire. There's been a certain exception set. Some guy named Gretzky is kind of fast track, right? So could never understand that one, but so that is one of the criteria. The other part is that once you're nominated, I mean, there's material that's circulated, and then it's just a case of working through meetings face to face or by way of Zoom and other technological means to give consideration, and everyone gets an opportunity to offer their views and concepts on that individual. So it's very detailed, very extensive, and I think those that have been honored, I think it clearly shows that the process works, and it's very meaningful.
How tough is it? You mentioned, having some likes for some players and stuff. How tough is it to kind of set aside your personal bias of a certain player when you're in that selection process?
You know what? I think in myself, I'm maybe in a very good position, given the fact that when you work with a league, you can't have personal biases, right? And you must set aside any thoughts or views of that nature. So over time, you know what? I look at things always on a broad perspective, and so I'm fortunate. I feel that I don't have any particular, views and attitudes of why a particular person should be ahead of another one. You use other metrics and means to determine that. But from what I can see, other members who aren't part of a league or are former players, it's the same thing. That respect factor kicks in, and it's just it's just doing and arriving at the right decision for the right reasons.
How much do you put aside your personal bias when it comes to rooting for your favorite team in the playoffs, NHL team?
You know what? I mean, I'm not embarrassed to say my favorite team is the Toronto Maple Leafs.
You're in
Good
good company.
But you know what? I love the game, and I mean, I watch it whenever I can, and marvel at today's athlete, the speed, the skill, et cetera, et cetera. So it's because that's all growing our game. That's important. So I'm excited to see what the playoffs hold for us this year as a Leaf fan, right? And I can always remember my mom saying to me, Dave, I don't know if I'm ever going to live long enough to see the Leafs win the Stanley Cup. And I'd say, oh, Mom, come on, don't worry about that. Yeah, of course they will. I'm now saying to my kids what she used to say to me. So, I'm very hopeful that the Leafs will, in my lifetime, I will see them raise the cup over their heads again.
Have you ever had any run-ins with Mr. Abbott on that side of things, him being a Montreal Canadiens fan?
No. We've not had that at all. And we've reserved any discussions that we have to the OHL. And I don't mean to demean Mr. Abbott, but I happen to think we share a lot of things, in the same light, about the way the game should be played and, things that we must do, things that we shouldn't do to our great game.
Listen,
Well,
we don't have. Go ahead, Kortney.
I was just gonna say, we like them and all, but the Habs thing, it's a sticking point, that's for sure.
Yeah, we won't hold it against them.
We don't have much time left, Mr. Branch, but I do want to ask you this before we go. You've probably been to so many OHL games in your career. Do any stand out as being particularly special?
Yeah, there is one. And it's one that I've long felt this way about. You'd think I'd know the exact year. I'll suggest around 1990 or thereabouts. An all OHL Memorial Cup final in Hamilton, Ontario, between the Kitchener Rangers and the Oshawa Generals. And I swear to you, I can remember as the game moved into overtime, sitting there thinking, I wish this game would never end. It's been so good. And it was just back and forth, and the passion, the skill, was phenomenal. And some exploits on both teams with special performances, particularly by the goaltenders. And that's one game that really stood out to me, along with the fact that Ontario was going to win the Memorial Cup. So that's always nice.
I got two more for you, and then we'll let you go, of course. But one is kind of a bit of a tough question to ask, because in your time, a lot of players have started to kind of go the NCAA route, of course. But now the OHL still being a premier league to develop and all that stuff, hockey wise, how's that changed trying to bring players to the league, whereas before it seemed like a big deal to come to the OHL? Now they got some options.
Well, we've done a number of things, not least of which, we touched on Adam Dennis and his role with the OHL prior to joining the Battalion. But it goes back even to the question that you'd raised before about expansion, right? Where I'm a great believer that it's competition and the level of competition that makes you better. And the options that are out there for young people, the NCAA is one of them. It makes us better, and we've had to respond. And we talked about our scholarship program and the $3.3 million our owners committed this past season. This is all as a result, largely due to competition and the quality of play, the quality of coaching, the quality of facilities, the standards that we establish for safety and expectations of proper conduct on the ice. This all goes to providing an environment that is second to none. But you know what? People deserve choices, and I'm not afraid to say the OHL isn't for everybody. But I'm also proud to say that if you want to be a player, if you want to develop skills to set you up with life, there's no better venue than the OHL.
That's an excellent answer. And one of the one last question I have for you is, I wanted to ask this when we were talking about when the OHL returned to North Bay. What was the league? How did the league feel, or what was the reaction when the Battalion went on that run that first season that they were here and just captivated the entire city of North Bay? Because you can't have many better first years back in the league than that.
You know what? So happy, so pleased. We wanted the community of North Bay, first of all, to know that we were delivering them a franchise that they would be very proud of, from ownership right on down. And for the community to be rewarded that way, that was special. And we were so happy to see that occur.
All right. And for real, my very last question for you is, and this might seem like a very easy answer, how excited are you to have the puck drop on the OHL season on October 7th?
It's there's nothing more exciting at this moment. Let me tell you, I mean, we've all missed it. We all want it for a variety of reasons. It's going to be special. And I think we're setting ourselves up for a season second to none. And our players deserve it. Our teams deserve it. Our loyal hockey fans deserve it. It's going to be a real celebration.
Well, we thank you for your time today, Commissioner of the OHL, David Branch. We're very excited to see the puck drop October 7th as well. And thank you for taking the time to answer some of our questions today. Well,
hey, Kortney and Tom, I really appreciate the opportunity. As we talked off camera before starting the program, we were going to talk hockey, and what a welcome relief. So this has been great. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Stay safe, sir. We appreciate it too.
Yes.
Okay.
Take care.
You too.
Whenever you're good.
Well, that was awesome. Talking with David Branch of the OHL, the commissioner of the OHL since 1979, 10 years before I was even thought of, which is crazy to think about. And it couldn't have gone any better. We love talking to the guy about his favorite NHL teams. And I didn't think he'd have like a favorite OHL moment so specific. I thought that was really cool.
Absolutely.
But either way, I'm Tom Parisi. He's Kortney Kenny. Our producer is Ben Sargent. And we say thank you to him and thank you to David Branch. If you're watching this on your TV, thank you to your TV for putting us on the air. And if you want to see the full highlights and the full episode, you can find it on YouTube, the Battalion channel. You can find us on Spotify, Google Podcast, and Apple Music. And anytime the Battalion makes some social media posts, you can find us there too. In the meantime, we're the Frontline Podcast, and this was a lot of fun, and we're definitely doing it again sometime.